Welcome back to another Shit Talk Fridays. I'm Gina.
And I'm Evo.
And tonight I'll let Evo introduce what we're drinking because I will definitely not say it correctly, and this is his fave.
Yeah, well, this is one of my favorites, but recently is what I've been drinking. This is Don Julio's Añejo. If you like Clase Azul, you'll really like this right here because it has a lot of the same notes, for a fraction of the price.
Yes, and I definitely do enjoy this tequila, and we are drinking this purely on the rocks.
Yes, purely on the rocks, just as it should be drank. As it should be
Drank.
drank.
Let's cheers.
Yes, cheers to that.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And ladies and gentlemen, this tequila is meant to be drank slow. Do not think that you can drink this and guzzle it.
Definitely don't try to speed through this one because you will get wrecked.
But to be honest, I think you'd appreciate it better if you drank it slow and really let the ice kind of settle into the drink.
Yeah, definitely need some time to breathe. There's an activation that happens with the water once it waters down a bit that really smooths out the harshness of a tequila that most people are familiar with when they drink tequila. And once that blend hits that sweet spot, I mean, it's really a pleasure to drink.
Agreed. So let's get into our topics for tonight. We have some fun ones for you. And these topics come from comments that we have recently come to read from previous posts that we put on our TikTok. And the reason why we're deciding to talk about these is because these are comments that can directly be answered or should be answered by a woman and a man. Because I think if you have the conversation with same sex, you're really not going to get to the nitty gritty of it.
You definitely need two perspectives on this one.
Yeah. So our topics are, is it easier for women to have sex? And then later on in the hour, we'll be talking about how Evo and I came to be a couple. And that comes from a couple of people on TikTok who asked us how we got together because we had a clip where Evo had said when we got back together. And that sparked a lot of people's interest as to how we were together at one point and then how we then later on rekindled our romance.
Yeah, right. I mean, we were kind of like touching on how certain people idolize relationships, but never really truly know how the beginning came to be. And in our case, it wasn't something that was ideal. And it ended up where it is right now. But we were making a comment how if someone saw me at that time, that they probably wouldn't have looked twice at me. And so people started to wonder, like, well, then how did you get back together? And they want to know that story. So we're going to touch on that and fill you guys in.
And you know what?
Guys and gals, I'm sorry. God damn it.
You know what that immediately made me think about when someone was asking about our past and how people that we've known throughout our relationship had asked us or had said that they kind of wish they had what we had. It made me think about that quote from J. Cole's song when he was like, I want that Will and Jada love. And now there's things that have come out that have really slighted against their relationship, but I still respect them so much. And there's nothing about their dynamic that has changed in my eyes because the people that I feel like comment on those type of things that happen in a relationship and make it seem like Will or Jada could do better in whichever case, I don't really know if they really understand what it takes to be in a long-term relationship. There's a lot of shit that goes on. And we'll get into how we got started later on. So let's start off with, is it easier for women to have sex? And the reason why this came about is because we had posted a clip on TikTok that talked about the reason why men value a woman that has potentially had less partners. And when I tell you, the men came in the comments like, yes, of course it's more valuable, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. But then there were a lot of men that were saying this one thing over and over again, which is women sleep with who they want and men sleep with who they can. And I found that comment so interesting because then that makes me think, is it easier for women to have sex or are men easier at putting out?
My perspective on this is that you cannot equally compare the two. I don't feel like that they are comparable because mainly women and men are looking for different things when it comes to physical experiences.
I would firmly agree on that.
But at face value, yes, it does seem that women have more opportunities than men.
Yeah.
If a woman goes out to a bar, she's probably most of the night having to, decline approaches from men, or women or whoever, or just being, declining approaches, and basically, almost like fighting her way just to go home alone or back to her significant other. And if a girl or a woman opens up a dating app account, I mean, it'll only be a matter of minutes, maybe hours, before she started getting flooded with offers and men approaching, or other people approaching them for whatever. And that's mainly based because, like, when women seek a sexual experience, they're seeking an emotional connection of some sort. Doesn't have to be a big one, or it can be a big one, but there is that approach to it, as to where men are looking for more of a physical experience. Men
are looking to get laid.
Yes.
Women are looking to have a sexual experience.
So, that being said, women are going to be more selective about it because it takes a lot more than just a physical experience to satisfy that.
Yeah.
So, they have to analyze more. They really have to, and the thing is that even though women get approached a lot more than men get approached, it doesn't necessarily mean that those people approaching them are what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of women and younger women or older girls end up declining, because it's just a lot of like things that they just are just not interested in. Doesn't feel that need. It doesn't spark them within, you know what I mean? And they're looking for something to make them feel good, initially, and kind of like see where that goes,
Yeah.
And even that's a bit of a journey, and it's totally something different for men. So I feel like based on that, there is no really comparing the two. Like one gets more than the other, because they're both looking for two different things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think what we can say is, like you kind of touched on it a little bit already, is that the opportunity presents itself more for women. But that does not mean that the opportunity that is presented is an opportunity that we want to take part in.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's a downside to that for women that I didn't initially realize, but I do now, is that women they end up becoming the object of someone's desires. And when I learned about that, I'm like, I almost felt a little like disgusting, like being looked at as an object, of someone else's desires. And unfortunately, that's something that women have to deal with a lot.
When you said that there's something that you didn't realize that happens to women, I thought you were going to say something different, but I'm going to tell you what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say what I have experienced, which is we become somewhat desensitized. And it then allows us to then look at all men almost the same to an extent. So when we're constantly being pursued by men that want to get laid, we then will block almost any advance and won't give a lot of men a chance because of how many other men have approached us in a way that was not to our, I guess, potential satisfaction, or it's not really going to give us that experience that we're looking for. So it's unfortunate that sometimes a woman will be approached by a man that may not be in the most confident in his approach. And that man may be the man that woman could have that experience with. But because of all the other men that have approached us, we're just like, nah, guy, you get the fuck out of here. I don't want to drink. I don't want your phone number. I don't want to, I don't want to exchange Instagram. And it sucks. And I think sometimes some of the best ways to meet a person is going to be in an environment where I guess your guard almost isn't up, where you're maybe just going somewhere with no like expectation of meeting someone, like, you know, going to a bar or going to like a party or whatever it is. But like maybe if you're just, I don't know, going to a friend's house for dinner and they invite another friend over and it happens to be like, you know, I feel like sometimes that's why those situations are a little bit more helpful.
Yeah, I would like to say that there has to be something interesting and refreshing about the approach. You know, I mean, women are complex individuals when it comes to satisfying them emotionally. And so when you have these men approaching girls and women, you know, with just your basic like, what's up, girl, you know, or like, you know, that up and down look with the you know, the licking of the lips or whatever, you know, trying to like, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just
some fuckboy shit,
you know. I can see how that just, you know, you're gonna hit a brick wall with that in most cases. So I think that it requires some type of complexity and some type of you know, being different in order to be able to approach a you know, a girl or a woman. And you know, just as you said, it's just, you know, the women get desensitized because of the same repetitive bullshit over and over again, which is why I strayed away from that most of my life. I know, you know, I saw that, you know, from a lot of the people that I hung out with, and, you know, seeing just my circle, the way that they, you know, they moved when it came to like being out and approaching girls. And I always wanted to be like a little bit different, you know, to set myself apart, you know. So like whenever I did engage with a girl, that it seemed refreshing, it seemed a bit different, you know, and it seemed something that like that if they saw it as such, that they would want to get to know better.
I want to get into that a little bit when you were saying that, because I have a little of a difference of opinion on you and your approach. But before I touch on that, I want to say that I put out a kind of like a poll on Instagram to see what people thought, if women receive sex easier or are men easy. And we have the results of the poll. And it seems to be that 76% believe that men are easy and 24% believe that it's easy for women. And what I find so interesting about that poll is that a lot of the people that were commenting on our TikTok that it's easier for women to have sex, I guess they don't realize that in order for it to be easy for women to receive sex, the people on the opposite end of it have to be more willing to give it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what this really says is that, or what it's just that women just have more opportunities. So this is actually saying that it's easier for men to have sex?
No. What it's saying is that men are easy.
Men are easy.
Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Like easier to please. Yeah, sure.
Whatever the case is, men make it easier to have sex with them. So where does the real problem lie?
Yeah.
So does the problem lie with the women, or does the problem lie with the men? Maybe men should have higher standards.
I think that this is exactly
to who
why
they give sex
this
to.
is exactly why you can't pose this argument, because of the intentions of the two are totally different.
Understood.
You know what I mean? I think that that's always gonna, you know, skew this answer to look like one is like a landslide over the other.
I would agree
with you.
Try
to answer them in the same perspective.
Because we're looking for two different types of opportunities. Yeah. However, do you think that men should potentially have a difference of standard when they're engaging in sex? Because if they're just looking to get fucked, because 90% of the time that's what it is.
I want to say that evolution has brought man to a point where there are, you know, a group of men that do seek that deeper and more emotional, and they're not just looking to fuck, you know.
Yeah. That's why I said 90% of the time. I don't believe that it's all men.
Yeah. But you know, yes, in a perfect world, of course, it would be better for men to have different standards. But I think that just goes against the way we're wired, you know, the way our DNA is wired, and the way that we're wired as males. You know, what instinctually, like, we initially look for at the beginning is purely like hormonal. you know, and driven by that, you know, and then it's at later in life where, you know, we kind of like branch off and evolve. Some don't, some do, and kind of like fall into like a little bit more of
a groove
or a politically correct place about approaching women for sex or for a relationship.
You know what I find so interesting about that is that this drive that you claim that men have that is very primal, we don't live in that world anymore.
No, I know.
Men used to, and I'm talking about before we even were the species that we are now, which is Homo sapiens, when there were other type of humanoids on the earth.
Yeah, I get that.
Men were driven to have sex and procreate with as many women as they could for the survival of their species.
No, I understand.
So that is no longer no longer the case. Hang on. And I also received comments on TikTok where a lot of people were saying things like, well, you can't deny science. So then I was like, you know what? I think a lot of these people may be right. Let me look into some of the science behind how men and women interact when it comes to sex and why we do it. And I went really far back. I went as far back as Darwin. And when I tell you some of that science is so outdated, it's kind of mind-blowing to me because the environment has changed significantly. We no longer have to have sex, or men don't have to have sex in order for the survival of their species.
Yeah, I think that you're overlooking one basic fact is that every male, when they evolve from a young boy into a teenager and they go into puberty, that whole transition where they're first feeling these emotions of testosterone and going into puberty, that is primal in itself. You know, it's a very new feeling that they have to kind of figure out. And at face value, it's a hormonal driven feeling.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's until that, you know, and it's every male has to go through that experience individually.
Okay.
You know, so that's why I say primal in that aspect. It's that when you first start to experience those things, you know, or primitive per se, you know.
Okay. I'm not going to deny that because I'm not a male, so I don't know what those feelings feel like. So, but I'm going to definitely take your word for it. But I'm going to go back to what you said earlier about your approach.
Okay.
And the reason why I want to get back to that is because later when we're going to talk about how we became a couple, it had a lot to do with your approach. So I guess because I was on the receiving end of your approach, I'm going to tell you how I observed it. And I never felt like you were trying to be different. I felt like you were just trying to be who you were. And the difference between you and other men is that you were not one to play games. A lot of men that I have encountered in my past that do that ayo girl was good shit, they're not being themselves. They're playing a game. And you weren't about that. You were just like, listen, this is who I am. Take it or leave it type shit. You were so about your shit that's what really drove me to you, because you were not willing to put aside your desires as far as like what you wanted, your goals and your dreams and your desires and your the journey that you were on. You weren't willing to put that aside for a girl, in the sense of like, I'm going to negate my responsibilities to hang out with you, where I've seen that a lot with men. But for me, it definitely was evil that you were just true to who you were, and you let me see you in all of the light of that was of evil. Whereas so many other men were like trying to keep up this facade of like they were fucking cool, or they were macho, or they were, you know, whatever it was. And I would see right through it, and I'd be like, is this guy for real?
Yeah, well, my you know, my primary focus on, you know, having a relationship with a girl was not sexual. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't my initial intent whenever I met a girl. It wasn't like to have sex with her. It was to get to know her.
Yeah.
It was to get to know her and see if there was a vibe. You know what I mean? And then if there was a vibe, then, you know, possibly move on to something physical at some point. I just felt like that when you did it in that order, it just made for such a better experience.
Yeah.
You know, and I just felt like that, you know, pursuing girls or women for sex, purely sex, eventually in the long run just complicated things, you know. And it just wasn't, I don't know, I did it when I was younger, and then I experienced something that was a lot more meaningful and had a lot more depth, and just decided that I didn't want that shallow shit no more ever. And then I was never going to put that as the primal focus of my relationships with any girl or woman that I encountered moving forward. So I had all my priorities, things that I knew that I wanted in life, and sex was not at the forefront of it. You know, it came afterwards. And so that's how that.
And this was early on, and we're talking about early 20s.
Yeah, I was pretty focused. I already knew like the things that I wanted and where I wanted to be, and you know, sex wasn't going to deter me from that.
You were 22 when I met you, and I was 20, and I remember you being about your shit back then. You know, it wasn't like you weren't. I guess the best way I can put it is that you were very different from a lot of guys that I had come across at that point in my life, especially coming from the area that I grew up in, where I was exposed a lot to the street life, where a lot of guys were doing that "hey yo shorty what's good" type shit.
Yep. Hey yo.
And you definitely weren't like that. But you still had a lot of street savvy about you, which I adored. But you did say that initially you were like that. Sex was the driver for you.
Yes.
But then I know we've talked about this before. You had a relationship with a young woman where that changed your whole perspective on how you approached women, and that happened really young, like 16.
16, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that young men have to go through something like that, or do you think that they can acquire that type of mindset without that type of experience? Like, could they take advice from you and say, that's the type of man I want to be? Or do you think that they have to go through something in order for them to change their mind?
You know, it's hard to say. If I had to look back and think about prior to being 16 years old, meeting someone that was me at an older age and them telling me about where they were at, where I eventually, ended up at, which was like, very serious, and looking for something more meaningful and, than the shallow relationships that I was being involved in, I probably I wouldn't have been able to relate to it. Only just because it was foreign, alien, it was alien, it'd be unknown to me. I think that I can only say that because that experience led me to really change the way that I, approached relationships. It totally changed the trajectory, my interest and what I wanted. I feel like that, they would have to experience something like that. It's I think everything is more meaningful when you experience it.
Yeah, I would agree, but I have definitely in my life taken advice from people that I felt like were my senior in experience in life.
Okay, so I understand. Yes, sorry. So I understand what you're saying. It would have to be, it would have to be a situation where a male was willing to be receptive. Maybe they were at a point where they were just like, frustrated with the results that they were getting, couldn't understand why there couldn't, something meaningful wasn't coming out of what they were doing, and have a willing and a want to change. At that point, yes, of course, I feel like I could guide them into a different direction to seek things in a different way. But without that, it's like almost like, I don't know, how do you fill a cup that's already full or that doesn't want to be filled?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I'd have to sit there and patiently wait for when they were ready.
When that opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, and then kind of like, tell them about my story and just hope that they find guidance in that story. Because, like, it's, even though it may not be right for everybody, maybe someone can find something in that and use it to, to their benefit.
Yeah, even if they don't take all of the advice, even if they take a piece of it.
Even if they take a piece of it. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think that, of course, that would definitely be helpful.
I can reflect back on one particular situation where a young woman gave me a piece of advice that kept me off the streets. And I think I've shared this with you before.
Okay.
I was just hanging out on the street a lot, doing things that I shouldn't have done or been doing. And that's actually something that I would love to discuss later on on another show where we talk about like my experience growing up, I guess you could say, in the ghetto. But she was 25 and I was 15, and she literally said to me, "Do you want to be me when you're 25? Do you want to be where I am right now, on the street hanging out with a 15-year-old selling drugs? Because if this is what you want, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So take that and fucking, run with it."
Yeah.
And at that moment, I literally was like, fuck, I don't want to be her. I don't want this. So that's why I know that there have been times in my life where I've taken advice based off of someone else's experience. So I'm wondering if it's possible for a young man. But I love how you said they really have to be receptive and open to it. And I think I was potentially like at a transitional point in my life where I didn't really want to be on the street anymore. But I thought it was I thought it was where I should be based on where my life was at that time. So I thank her for that. I want to get into a little bit of some of the drivers of why people have sex. And I know that you said that you had some of that information. And the reason why I want to get into it is because when you reflect back on a lot of the previous studies of what drives man and woman to have sex, a lot of science, like pre the 2000s, basically just said that men and women did it for pleasure or for procreation. There was like really no other drivers. That's why I said the science, I feel like, was so old, because the environment now is so fucking different.
Yeah.
So could you like give us a little bit of like background on what are some of the drivers that people will engage in sex for, and why I feel like these factors may play a part as to why people feel like maybe it's easier for men or easier for women?
Well, so prior to like the 2007, there really hadn't been much study going on. Why? Because from what I found is that scientists were prude, and so they weren't really into digging into the foundation of why people have sex. They were more intrigued in like breakthrough scientific studies. And so afterwards, it was found that there was it five factors? I'm sorry, there was 4 main factors and then 13 sub factors.
Yeah.
Right. So the first main factor was a physical factor. Right. And a sub factor of this was for tension relief, getting rid of pain, frustration, physical or mental tension, literally fucking the pain away, so to speak.
So I have the same information, and I'm gonna summarize it for you a little bit, because I don't think that we need to go into like as to like why every single.
Okay, so you wanted to just go through the 4 main factors?
Yeah. I'm gonna the 4 main factors I can deliver for us, and then like I would love your like perspective on them.
Okay.
So, okay, first, the physical factor. So you said tension relief is one of the physical factors. Then there is the physical desirability, which is basically like desiring another person. And then there is the experience seeking. Yeah. Like when a person's just looking to experience a particular experience. So then there's goal attainment, which I thought was so crazy. Like people are looking at, sex like I'm gonna get this goal, right?
Well, there's there's a social status behind it. There's
Yeah, and then there's revenge sex, which I thought was interesting. I myself have never experienced that, but I have spoken to people that have had sex for revenge. And then there is obtaining an object of desire, which, you kind of talked about earlier, which is interesting that like someone would be the object of someone's desire. They're not even looking at them like a person.
Right.
And then there's the emotional, which is people are looking for love and commitment and expression of their emotions. There's insecurity. People are going to do it for a self-esteem boost. They're going to do it for pressure, which is interesting because when I read that made me think about the story that you had told when you were younger. Your first sexual experience was through pressure.
Through peer pressure, yeah.
Yeah, through peer pressure. Your peers basically set up a situation where you were told that you were going to have sex. And if you didn't, you were looked at like a bitch, basically.
Yeah.
And then there's mate guarding, which I also thought was interesting, which is basically you interacting with your mate to have sex to guard them from having sex with anyone else or having the desire to have sex with anyone else. And then there is utilitarian, which I thought was interesting, gaining a kind of advantage through the means of sex for financial or social means, which we know that there are a lot of people that do that. They will have sex to help themselves in a particular aspect in life.
Yeah.
So now we have these like different dynamics of the reasons why people have sex. And when I read them, I think about the type of people that will do these more so. But you and I read the same study, and the study in the end says still men look as their primary objective to have sex is for pleasure and for pleasure and what's the other one?
Procreation.
Oh, no. Sorry, that was the other one. It's for pleasure and because there is a attraction.
Okay.
So those are the two main things. They're doing it attraction based and they're doing it for pleasure. Like in the end, those are their primary. Not to say that the other ones that we listed are also not part of it, but they're on the latter part of their, initial seeking. So now that we have like all of these different factors as to why people will engage in sex, when I read them, do you not see how it is like some of them I feel like are more geared towards women and some of them are more geared towards men?
Well, yeah, I think that's what makes up the whole,
yeah,
the four main factors. It's a blend of, what's geared, like you said, what's geared towards women and what's geared towards men.
But what I'm saying to you is that like it validates your point. What you said is that like things can't be equal.
Right, they cannot be equal because we obviously have different objectives.
Because we have different objectives when it comes to like why we want to have sex. So do you feel like this argument of it's easier for women versus men, do you feel like it's a futile argument?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, that's like, I'm literally going to pull this analogy out of thin air, but I think this is a pretty good one, right? That's like let's take smoking cigarettes for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason, okay, so now there's a question is who smokes more cigarettes, men or females, or men or women? Sorry. And it turns out that it seems that men smoke more cigarettes. Okay, but men, maybe they smoke cigarettes because it makes them feel better when they inhale it. Like it just gives them a different feeling.
Okay.
And women smoke cigarettes because it helps them concentrate. It just does something different for them. So because men are doing it because it just makes them breathe better, then because they're constantly breathing, they're going to smoke more cigarettes.
Okay.
So I just feel like that this, in a more complex way, falls in line with that. There's just no way to compare them, because obviously there's different objectives being pursued when it comes to sex, or in that example, cigarettes. One is going to do it a lot more than the other one because they're looking for different things out of it.
That immediately makes me think about another study that I read that I actually shared with you about how some different sexualities were studied. Homosexuality and was one of the other sexualities that was studied when it came to how people pursue sex. And don't come for me, people, but this study said that there are men that will engage in homosexuality to have more sex because of their want to, because of their want of like desire for something.
For sex, yeah.
For sex. And women will engage in homosexuality or being a lesbian because they're looking for a connection.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're looking for sensuality.
Didn't never heard of that, but I mean,
when I tell you I've never heard of this either, and it blew my fucking socks off because I was like, holy fuck. I'm gonna tell you why that made so much sense to me. Totally two different stories. The first story is one time Evo found a phone in a cab that belonged to...
No, it wasn't in the cab. I found it at a 7-Eleven.
You found it? Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm telling the story wrong.
We were in the city And
I was gonna meet you to go eat go-go curry.
Yeah, and I ended up going to 7-Eleven to get something. And when I went to go, I think I was getting some drinks or something like that, and I saw that there was a phone on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I looked around. There was nobody looking for it, so I grabbed it. You know, with the initial intent to try to contact somebody on the phone and see how I can get it back to the owner. So, anyway,
okay,
continue.
So I meet up with Evo, and he's like, "Yo, I found this phone, and it seems to be that it belongs to a man who's gay." And I was like, "What makes you think that?" He was like, "Gina, the contact in the phone is a male. The owner of the phone is a male. I can tell by their text message because the phone wasn't blocked. So there were text messages going off between the owner of the phone and another male counterpart." And Evo said that he was fucking mind blown by what we were reading. Yeah. And you couldn't help but to read it because the phone wasn't blocked, so the messages were just coming in.
Yeah, well, I kind of went through the message portion of it to try to see if I could find someone who that person was in communication with. I was trying to find
contact them.
Somebody of relevance that was in the contact. So I went right for the messages.
Yeah.
Instead of just going through the contacts and contacting a random person, I knew that I would find like somebody important in the messages. And when I went into the messages, to my surprise, I came across a conversation between this guy and another guy. And I mean, it immediately just was like all about sex.
Yeah. And it was extremely, the conversation, it was not for the faint of heart. Yeah. It was literally like, "Yo, are you DTF? Because I'm DTF and I want a DTF right now."
Yeah, it was. So, all right. So, no, and not to say that this is how every conversation goes,
yes,
you know, between every gay person, but this was my experience just with this one person on this one phone. Mm-hmm. And it was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Nothing much." "What are you doing?" "Nothing." "Want to fuck?"
Yeah.
"What?" Like, there was no buttering up or warming.
Yeah.
Hey, I missed you. I've been thinking about you. You know, the other night was really great. Want to do dinner? Like, yeah. No, it was just like, "What are you doing? What are we doing?" "Want to fuck?"
Yeah.
And then, you know, and I was blown away by that. And then kind of like scrolling through the messages, every time that they were looking to engage in sex, it was literally that short.
Yeah.
About like, "What are you doing? Quick, you're not busy? Want to fuck?"
Yeah.
"Want to fuck? Want to fuck?" And then, you know, then they came across some explicit photos that were kind of going back and forth, and man, was I blown away at how just direct that shit was. There was no fluff, no sugarcoating, no warming up to shit.
Yeah, there was no sensuality, there was no connection,
none whatsoever.
So the other story that I immediately think about is not a story that I've known a person to have. It's a story that I've heard time and time again. Women will have several bad experiences with men and then eventually wind up with a woman. And they will just be like, "I'm getting from this woman everything I could never get from a man," which is the connection, the caring, the understanding, the sensualness, you know, just understanding my body better. And this goes back to a study that you and I once touched on before. How much a heterosexual couple reaches, a female will reach orgasm in a heterosexual relationship versus a gay relationship. And in a heterosexual relationship, a woman is only reaching orgasm like 60% of the time.
Yeah.
And in a gay relationship, a woman can reach orgasm 85% of the time.
Yeah.
And this is a study that was done by a university, and it's evading me right now, but it's something that we talked about before when we talked about like sex and orgasms and all this other stuff. And I feel like that directly speaks to why a woman will be with another woman for that connection, and why a man can potentially be with another man just to have sex. And I think the point that I brought up to you was when men are incarcerated, they will engage in man-on-man sex just to have sex.
Yeah, and it won't be anything like, I don't even know if this is safe to say, but I don't feel like there's anything homosexual about it.
Yeah.
I just feel like that they're just willing to do it to have sex.
Yes. I have never been in prison. I'm not a man, so I can't speak to it, but I know men that have been in prison. Mm-hmm. And I know of stories that have been told to me of things that people have observed.
Yeah.
And it is just looking to a means to an end when it comes to something like that. So I find this whole dynamic of like it's easier for women versus it is men. I think my opinion on this is that men should maybe take a step back and think about why it is that they want to have sex when they're engaging with a woman. Because if they feel like it's easier, then maybe they're making it too easy.
No, I honestly think that men that do approach women in that fashion, that they're actually looking for that one moment where they encounter a woman that will just as easily have sex with them. They're willing to just keep throwing fucking darts at a dartboard until something fucking sticks.
Yeah, but that's still the same concept. They're just doing it to do it. I'm just saying maybe have a little bit more purpose. Because if men are saying that it's so easy for women, it's easy for women because there are so many men willing to have sex at any given moment. So if men are if men start being a little bit more reserved in how much sex that they're willing to put out, then maybe it will level the playing field a little bit in the sense of like how easy it is. This is just my perspective. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do understand what you're trying to say, but I don't think I don't feel like that's going to work.
Okay.
I just feel like the desire to have sex is so strong.
I'm not.
You're saying to like kind of withdraw from that.
Yeah.
And then like I don't think that I think that for you to say that is a lot easier said than done because
oh yeah, for sure.
Because you lack the experience of having to go through that constant, desire to want to have sex just for a physical experience.
I firmly agree with you, Eva, on that. But if we engage in every desire that we had at any given moment, we would all be in a really fucked up place.
Yeah. So think about it as so what if you compared it to a woman who was an nymphomaniac? Someone like that is just wants to have sex all the time, and I feel like that there's no really emotional drive behind it.
Okay. That is to me that's a poor comparison because if you're a nymphomaniac, that means you have a disorder.
Yes.
So that's different. I'm talking about a person who is just of like
what I'm trying to compare it to.
State.
What I'm trying to compare it to is that a woman in her normal mental state is not typically just gonna be constantly seeking sex for physical experience. Now, I feel like that the only woman that would actually do something like that, for lack of a better example, would be a nymphomaniac.
No,
okay? There probably is a better example. It's just right now one's not coming to me, so I use that as an example.
I'm not. Maybe I'm not. I totally understand this. I understand a man's drive for sex. I'm still saying that a man should still withhold. Is my point. Because if men are saying that it's easier for women, it's because men are making it easy for us.
Yes.
Because if it takes two,
I can agree. I can agree with you on that.
If men take a step back and say, maybe we shouldn't make it that easy. Maybe we should make it more of, there's a little bit more of a time gap in between how much I engage in sex, even though I want it to be for that physical connection or that physical experience, more so, I need to practice self-control and not engage in that way. I definitely think, Eva, and again, this is just my opinion, and this is almost like a social experiment. I feel like if men did that, it would kind of change the way that women feel about the way that they engage with men. And the reason why I say this is because, Eva, when you and I dated, you never made me feel pressure to have sex. You never even would bring it up. Even in times that we were like, kissing and, touching, you never were like, hey, so we're at second base. Are we going to, you never made it a point. You always made me feel comfortable. So there you were practicing self-control, even though we were both very attracted to each other.
Yeah.
There was obviously some sexual tension there, but you were never bringing it to that place. But what I find so interesting and why I wanted to why I thought this would be a good time to talk about how we became into a relationship is because from talking to you and from knowing you, you never really had a hard time having sex with women because you practice self-control. You just didn't fuck everything that came into your presence. Can you see how in your eyes it was easier for you, but for men it's harder for them? The majority is saying it's harder.
Yeah, well, you know, I
got you.
I see where you're going with this, all right? And you're right, but it took for me, it took that experience, okay? Because prior, remember, and we're going to repeat this, I was that person.
I know, and that's why I asked you. I wondered if men would take advice.
Yeah, so like I ended up experiencing something that showed me that there's something way more meaningful than sex. And if you just kind of paused for a second, approach things differently, put a little bit more work into it, that the sex would be 10 times better.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. If you just kind of like strategically placed your chips in a way where it became more of a waltz than in a full-on attack.
I like that.
So there was a chemistry that came out of it. You know what I'm saying? And there was just something that once those two combined together, you got something that you couldn't get from just having that that aggressive approach on like, what's up, blah blah blah. So
I got you, Evo.
Yes. So that's because I ended up wanting something different.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I just changed the way that I approached things and was patient, that when I did get it, for me, it would be way better than what I was getting before. But if you don't know any better, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So if you're a male or a man, kind of going through life, if you just, if you don't know any better, then how are you supposed to, how are you supposed to act different? How are you supposed to willingly to just withdraw to say, hey, let me fall back for a minute.
Yeah.
For what?
Well, I'm hoping that this podcast gets out to quite a few men out there, young men, and maybe they can take from Evo's example. But can you see how because you switched up your approach, Evo, sex came to you easier? And not only did it come easier, it was more fulfilling.
Yeah, I preferred it that way. I felt like that the engagement with a woman was a lot better when she was fully interested in me.
Yeah.
And when I played my cards in a way where it was her that at some point wanted to initiate the sex, and of course we consented at that time.
Yeah.
But it was more like, she was, primed and ready to go. It was just it was like the experience was just night and day from what I knew.
You and I started dating, and let's get into this, how we became into a relationship. You and I started dating in 2001. This was the first time that I met Evo. We were going to school. And when we first started dating, I approached you. I literally saw you from across the room and I said, "Stop the press. Who is that?" And I went right up to you and I was like, "Hey, I'm Gina. I don't know what your situation is." I knew who you were because we had played cards a couple of times.
Yeah.
We had casually been introduced, but like it wasn't like we had in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
So after coming across you maybe once or twice, I went right up to you and I said, "Hi, I'm Gina. I don't know what your relationship status is right now, but I would like to get to know you. So can we exchange phone numbers?" And I remember, you see your face right now? It's the same exact face that you had that day.
Because I remember this. I remember this. And
you looked at me and you were like, "Oh, hey, girl."
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I was very interested in you. But
yeah.
again, that just wasn't my thing, Like we we initially met in a cards game.
Yeah.
You know, where you asked
Spades.
Yes,
by the way,
it was a spades game that was going on. They were missing a player. I was sitting at the table next to them, just casually sitting there. I guess I forgot what I was waiting for.
You were in between classes.
I was in between classes, so I was asked to sit in on a game, and that's when we first met. Game went well, whatever, and then kind of like afterwards, we kind of socially knew each other. And I thought you were very attractive, but you had blonde hair at the time.
I did.
And it threw me off.
Because you didn't know what I was.
I didn't know what you were, and I just got out of like a relationship, and I had told myself that my next relationship I wanted to be culturally connected with the person that I was with. I needed something a little bit more deep and meaningful because my last relationship wasn't quite that. It was like the takeaway from that relationship.
Yeah.
It was it was a great relationship, but it was lacking that.
It wasn't a great relationship.
I mean, it had its greatness to it. I mean, of course it was.
I'm just
we didn't end
joking.
up together, obviously not. So it wasn't that great, but
it wasn't all bad.
It wasn't all bad. Yeah, there was a lot of great things about it. But the takeaway was that I wanted to be culturally connected with the person that I was with. I saw you, I was attracted to you, but you didn't look Hispanic or Latina at the time to me. And then there was one day.
Hold on, you're skipping ahead.
Am I really? Okay, sorry.
Don't skip ahead.
So anyway, we have that game, and
wait, I want to just give you a piece of backstory real quick. I actually asked my friend to ask you to play.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that. I literally was like, ask him to play.
Yeah,
I had seen you in the cafeteria.
Wasn't her name Flo?
No.
You sure it wasn't?
No.
Okay.
No. I actually don't want to share her name on here, but no.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
No, you don't.
No?
I know that person, but no, that's not who I'm talking about. Anyway, I basically was like, hey, ask him to play. And I had seen you playing cards before, so I wasn't even sure if you knew how to play spades. Luckily you did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when I found out that you knew how to play spades, I was like, check. Okay, man knows how to play spades, because I'm from the streets, and if you don't know how to play spades, I don't know.
That's a strike right
there. That's a strike right there. Yeah. So that was definitely a bonus. Okay, so Bet, on that same day that I asked you for your phone number, we hung out that same day.
Yeah.
You were willing to, because we were on break from class, and ladies and gentlemen, I was not legal yet as far as like drinking.
You're skipping past.
No,
because
we hung out that same day.
We hung the day we exchanged numbers, right? But your hair wasn't blonde then. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. No,
I wasn't like I thought you were attractive, but you didn't really like hit my radar until one day you showed up to school with your hair black and it was curly.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, and it just hit me like a brick. And then after that, like, you were like really like the center of my attention after that, because like it was like
Eva was like, dream,
it literally like
the
music stopped, everything turned white, and it was just like, what the fuck? And it was like all of a sudden what I had been looking for walked into the room, and after that you had my full on attention.
Yeah. So we actually wind up hanging out that day because my friend and I were on break, as you were, at that moment that I approached you, and we were gonna go eat something, and I was like, hey, do you want to come with us? And you were like, fuck it, yeah, sure. So we went to, I think, like an Applebee's or something like that, and I wasn't even 21 yet, so I remember you and my friend were of age, and you guys had to order me drinks, and I was like sipping on your drinks like through a straw. I was like, let me get a sip. And we just had a great time. We had great conversation. We laughed a lot. And then it kind of just took off from there. And a little bit of backstory. I actually was a single mom at that time. I had my oldest son, Anthony. He was 3 years old. I was separated from the father of my kids, or our kid at the time. And I was like newly separated, and I had not dated for 5-6 years at that point. So this was all very new to me, because I had been with the same person since I was 16 or 15. And now I'm 20. So like 5 years I had not dated another person. And it was definitely weird, because I guess when young women should be dating, I wasn't dating. I was a young mother.
Right.
So it was different, and you were so different from anything I'd ever come across, because you had it you had it all. You were going to school, you had a job, you had a nice car.
Had a side hustle.
Yeah, but I think the thing that really took me for a loop was your how big you were on maintaining your responsibilities.
Yes.
That was so sexy to me. Like, you were just like, I'll never forget one day I was like, hey, you want to cut class and like go fool around? And you were like, no, bitch. I'm paying to go to school. I need to go to class. Why would you even say that to me? And you like kind of scolded me.
Well, what I remember this day actually very clearly. What I ended up, I was dropping you off at work, and we were making out in the car before you went in, and you all of a sudden had this idea to call out of work.
Yeah, I was ready to risk it all.
Like, how about I call out of work? You call out of work, and then we go hang out. And I was like, whoa, hold up. I was like, do me a favor. I was like, don't mess with 3 things: my school, my money, and my family. I said, as long as you don't mess with those 3 things, we will be 100% okay. All right. Now do me a favor, go to work and call me when you get out.
I remember.
And I literally, that whole makeout session ended right there. Like, I was like, no, she needs to focus, because like, you got me fucked up.
look at the smile on my face right now.
I mean, I was way too focused. Like,
I remember walking to work, because I worked at a hotel at that time, pretty big hotel, and there was like an employee space outside of like security where a lot of the employees would go and smoke and like on their break be outside. And there was this one employee that I was really good friends with, and she would always be there at the time when you would drop me off. And I remember after that day, I got out the car and I walked over. She was like, girl, look at the smile on your face. I was like, shut the fuck up. Because not only did you like really let me know like how you saw things, I respected you so much for that. And I was just like, ooh, check number 2. Like, you were fucking hitting it on the head, right? So fast forward, because that was like the summer, like a late summer. We did not have sex for almost 2.5, 3 months. Because I remember it being,
we were just getting to know each other.
Yeah, I remember it being like October.
Yeah, no pressure from me. Like, that was not my intention at all. Every time we hung out, there was never no like trying to pursue our way to a room or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, I really wanted to get to know you, and really like just build that kind of like
rapport with me.
Just build like a personal connection, before it got physical. Because that's what I learned. I learned that when you did that, and you had, obviously there was a sexual interest in that person, but when you built the personal connection, the personal rapport, and there was a chemistry in that, once that escalated to having sex, it just made for like just a fucking phenomenal experience. And I was willing to wait for that.
That was probably the best thing that could have happened to me at that time, because coming out of a relationship with the man who was the father of my son at the time, I was really like on the defense as far as, interacting with the man or being sexual with the man. It was something that I was just kind of like, that's a no-no for me right now, because it obviously got me into a situation right now where I'm a young mom. So I really was looking to take my time, and any guy that wasn't willing to take that journey with me, they could fucking kick rocks. And it just, lo and behold, that was kind of like how you did things. And I was like, fucking check number 3, I guess, So we wind up having sex. It was a really great experience. I want to share like a little piece real quick that I thought was so fucking funny that I'll never forget. We went to school that day, and then after class, we decided to go to the hotel room that we were going to get, because you didn't live on your own.
Right,
I was like staying with a friend at the time.
Typically, you gotta get a room.
Yeah. So I get in the car, and ladies and gentlemen, this is like early 2000s. I get in the car and I look in the back seat, and there's a radio.
I got like a bag of tricks.
There's like a boombox in the back. And I'm like, why is there a radio in the back seat? This is how fucking naive I am. Evil's like, it's like, so when we get the room, like we could play music. And I was like, oh.
You're like, we going to a party? What's going on?
Bitch was so stupid. Right? And then like, I thought it was so fucking great, because like we drive off, you stop at a quick check or something like that to get condoms and like get a few snacks. Then we get to the hotel, we pay for the room, and then there's like bubbles, and like you could buy bubbles, and you're like, oh, let's get a couple of those. And I remember being like, oh no, he wants He wants to do that too? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So bottom line, it was a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Funny story though, that wound up being our only experience.
Yes.
Not because there was a lack of interest after. Our lives at the time were, I was a mom. I had a job. We were both going to school.
Mm-hmm.
There just wasn't a lot of time to set that up. So what wound up happening was it kind of just went like that for a little bit. And I think after that encounter sexually, my feelings for you became extremely apparent, that I wanted more than just the casual dating that we were doing. Because when we first started to date, I was kind of, dating other people.
Which we were very open about.
Yeah.
And that was like fine, because I wasn't looking for nothing serious at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wanted to just have fun and get to know people, and if sex came out of it, great, but it wasn't like my main objective,
And that's how I felt. I was like, I just got out of something really intense, and like, I definitely don't want to get into something else right now. Kind of just like want to like play around a little bit, take it slow,
sure.
get, have a good time with you. But then once we had sex, and it wasn't just the sex. It made me realize that like you had checked all those boxes for me, even though I didn't go into it with this mentality of I want this man to meet these criteria that I have.
Right.
You just wind up being so much more than I ever experienced, and you were so like secure in who you were as a person. I was so fucking attracted to that. And true story, like, because you were Latino, there was that Latin connection that we shared that I had not experienced previous, that like even drew me closer to you. So after that, like, it became apparent that I had stronger feelings for you. I never came out and said it to you. I never was like, hey, I love you, or hey, I'm in love with you, or hey, I have these feelings for you. But that shit was written all over my face.
It was.
I started looking at you with puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, you did.
Like, hey, Bobby, you want to hang out? Eva was like, oh no. What have I gotten myself into? Because you made it very clear in the beginning that you didn't want anything serious, and I had said the same thing. So now
things changed. The dynamic had changed, and that actually saddened me deeply, because now I'm realizing that as much as I really liked you, and as much as and I know this sounds cliche, but as much as I saw myself with you, I didn't have it in me to fully immerse myself in a relationship. And I could tell that you were like more than willing to go there if the opportunity had presented itself at that time.
Oh yeah, I was willing. Yeah. I was willing to put my cards on the table.
And I evaluated it. I thought about it for sure. I really gave it some deep consideration. And the conclusion that I came to was that it would be a train wreck.
Yeah.
Because I knew what I needed to bring to a relationship in order for me to put my best foot forward, and I didn't have it at that time. I couldn't give it to you, so that told me that I needed to end it. I couldn't keep leading you on, or keep hanging out with you, leading you to think that there was going to be something more coming out of it when I had no intentions of giving that. And so I remember deciding like that I have to end this, and then I did. I ended it.
Wait, there's a part that I want to share real quick. Okay. So, fine. We didn't, that was October. You didn't end it until after we came back from Christmas break from school. And I'll never forget, Evo came back. He had went to Dominican Republic while we were on break. He came back looking, oh my God. He was tan.
Had a fresh island tan.
Right? Looking sexy. Had on this really nice outfit. And I see him in school and I'm like, hey, what's up? And you're like, hey, shit, I forgot. Like, you knew that you had to now.
No, I didn't forget. I just...
Not that you forgot, but what I'm saying is like you were kind of like, fuck, this is something that like I now have to deal with.
When I came back, I was definitely on cloud 9 from just coming back from vacation. And I guess when I saw you, I wasn't expecting to see you. And so, like, then all of a sudden it set into me what I knew I had to do, and that I needed to do it at that moment, because that was my intention, to like do it as soon as I saw you. Yeah. I just wasn't expecting to see you when I did. So it was to call me a little bit off guard.
It was so we went into the parking lot, and you basically were like, listen, and I'm like paraphrasing. You were like, listen, you're a really great girl. I really like you. I really like spending time with you. But I would be a asshole if I kept seeing you, because you want something that I can't give you. And at that point in time, the only thing what I heard was Charlie Brown's parents going, wah, 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 because literally I heard nothing other than, I don't want you.
You know what I also told you that you probably don't remember is that I told you that I said, you know, I'm going to tell you this, and you're probably not going to like to hear this. I said, but I know a lot of guys right now, given the situation with a girl like you, would totally take you for a ride. They would wreck you. They would totally take advantage of your feelings and just do as much as they could with you and hang you out to dry, just because they saw a vulnerable opportunity to do so. And maybe they didn't even know what to do with that. You know, they just know how to just, you know, get what they want out of it. And I said, this is me telling you that I'm not that guy.
And it almost seemed like it's not me, it's
not
you.
Me, it's you. Yeah.
I remember being like, what the fuck? And I held it together and I was just like, okay, sure.
Yeah, you did.
No problem. It was nice knowing you. And I literally turned around, got in my friend's car, and cried my fucking eyes out. And I remember just being like, this is the man of my dreams, and he literally just told me he wants something to do with me. And I remember my friend was just like, let's go eat. Like, she, you know, she really like was there for me at that time. And I remember just being devastated and saying to myself, like, you know, you start asking yourself all those questions, like, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Like, and in the end, I just basically said to myself, okay, I'm going to have to continue going to school with this guy. So I need to really get myself together, and I need to hold my head high, because I came to the realization that I didn't do anything wrong. It just wasn't meant to be. And that was my I guess, closure, because I didn't want to talk to you anymore after that. Like, after that, I literally wanted nothing to do with you, because my ego was hurt.
Yeah, sure. I mean, makes sense.
So we continued to go to school with each other till like the next spring. And that was really hard, because I swear to God, as much as I tried to fucking avoid you, I kept running into you.
It wasn't a big school.
I know, but it was so annoying, because I literally would try to avoid you at all costs. And I remember one time leaving my class to go to the bathroom, and I had to go downstairs to the closest bathroom. And as I'm walking down the stairs, I hear you walking up to, I'm like, is this?
Is this real life right now?
Is this real life? Like, a chick can't even go to the bathroom. So we wind up going to school with each other to the next spring. Now this is spring of 2001. I withdraw from school. I started to have issues with my child's father, and we were potentially considering being, I don't know, there was just like a lot going on. We were potentially being back together, but then we weren't. And it was too much for me to take at that time. So I wind up leaving school. And then what ended up happening was I then moved back home, because I was living in New Jersey at the time. I moved back home for that summer. So the summer of 2001, I was home until the fall of 2001. And during that summer, you and I hooked up one more time. And it was the worst experience I've ever had. Not because the sexual experience was bad. It was because I kept pushing the envelope so much, like, hey, let's meet up. Hey, let's meet up. You were like, okay, fine, let's meet up. But I'm going to treat you the way that you're wanting to be treated, because I told you that I didn't want anything serious.
Yeah.
And I thought that if you saw me in a new light, like, I was more independent. I had my own car at this time. I was like in another state. I was like, oh, he's gonna, like, this is gonna be so different. And it wasn't. And you were basically just like, hey girl, what's up? We gonna go to the club or we not? You want to hook up afterwards? And I remember just being like, wow, this is like I'm getting a fucking taste of my own medicine right now. And I'll never forget leaving that night and my friends getting in the car with me and being like, because, you know, of course I dragged my friends with me, and they were like, was everything you wanted? And I remember just being like, shut the fuck up. And I just turned and I just drove home. And I was just like, I remember saying to myself, I will never let that happen to myself ever again.
To your defense, though, I mean, once we went our separate ways at DeVry, I kind of like went into like a life of not making the greatest choices and not hanging out with the best people that were good for me. And then so like
Yes.
You like, bless your heart, you would always call me on my birthday, just to say happy birthday, to check in.
We didn't get to that part yet.
Well, but I feel like between then,
yeah, because
you would still call me. Yeah.
Well, it was only one time.
Yeah, you would still call me on my birthday.
I will say though, now that you say that, I do remember that even before that summer, you started down that road of like not hanging out with the best people.
Yeah. So like, we would speak once a year on my birthday, and those conversations would go great. And I guess that at some point they were short.
They were very short.
They were short, but great. It was good to hear from you, and you on the phone, you obviously didn't know the lifestyle that I was living.
Yeah.
So, but just based on the great conversation, you at some point you thought it would be a good idea for us to hang out again, and was pushing the issue for us to hang out. And that's when we hung out. And it ended up not being a great experience for you because you saw me still in a place where I was not. I mean, when I saw you, I was just like, definitely still not ready for this. Definitely still can't do this, especially where I'm at right now. And what you got was, the result of that,
Yeah. It still did not, it didn't paint you in a bad light for me, because it made me realize that I was what's that saying that you say about you asked for it? That one.
You get what you asked for, so take it because you asked for it, by my man Jada Kiss.
Yeah. So it was exactly that. I asked to see you in a way that was not like you had said to me clearly the year before. You didn't want anything else.
Right.
So
and when we hung out, I believe that the signs were there.
Yeah.
Like, and you still wanted to hang out that day. You still wanted to hang out afterwards.
Yeah.
You still want it was clear.
I really liked you.
Yeah. But it was clear that I still wasn't like that person. But you were pushing the issue.
Yeah, I did. And I remember driving away. Not walking away. I remember driving away from that situation and just being like, I'm never going to put myself in that situation ever again. And now it's time to get on my grind. Now it's time for Gina to focus on Gina and forget all this other bullshit of trying to find Mr. Right. I really need to get my life in order because I was kind of all over the place. And then crazy shit happened. I was working in the World Trade and 9/11 happened. And that was fucking insane. Because I was living in Staten Island at the time. So it hit really close to home. And the World Trade had been a big part of my life. So living in Staten Island in the area that I lived at that time, it became very volatile to be. And I didn't feel safe to be there with my son. So I moved back to New Jersey. And I moved in with a friend. And I started going to school for auto mechanic. And that's a whole nother story. And I, was on that journey for myself. And I winded up getting pregnant a second time by the father of my first son. And real quick, the reason why that happened was because I was not willing to have unprotected sex with just anybody. And him being the father of my son, I felt comfortable being with him. Yeah. And after you, I was not like really intertwined with anybody for quite a while. So, that happened. And I got pregnant with my second son. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because my older son was now 5 years old at the time. So it was like, I could not believe that this happened to me again. And obviously decided to have him. And now here I am, 22 years old with 2 children. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm still going to keep going. And luckily, I was able to complete school at going to be a mechanic. I got a really good job and I was able to then live on my own with my 2 boys.
Well, you worked your way up in
that
job too.
I hustled.
Yeah, you did.
And I was able to live on my own. And now fast forward 4 years. We are in 2005. And Gina's living on her own with her 2 boys. One is, my oldest and my youngest. And my little brother was living with me at the time.
Yep.
And it was January 2005. Now, mind you, I said that the last time Evo and I had seen each other was July of 2001, that summer. I'm sitting in my room and I'm just like, and I don't know what sparked the thought of you in my mind, but something sparked it, and I was just like, I'm gonna fucking call this guy. I don't care. I'm a grown woman, and I'm gonna tell this man how he made me feel and the trajectory that he sent me on after the experience that I had with him. I picked up the phone. I still knew your house number. What the fuck? That sounds a little psychotic, but I did. Because this is when people still call people's houses. Home, and I called you. And you picked up. And actually, your sister picked up the phone first. And I was like, hey, can I speak to Evo? And your sister was like, oh, he's not. And as she was saying it, you picked up the other line. And you were like, hello. And when I tell you my fucking heart dropped to my butthole, I was like, oh, my God. And then your sister hung up, and I was like, hey, Evo, it's Gina. I don't know if you remember me. We went to school, together back in 2001. You're like, yeah, hey, oh my God, what's up? I remember you. And I was like, listen, I got something to say. I just need you to hear me out. And you may think I'm crazy after this, but I need to say it. And I was like, 4 years ago, I fell in love with you. And I never told you that I fell in love with you. But that experience that I had with you set me on a path in my life that I think you needed to know about. Because I didn't understand what you were saying to me when I was 21, which was I could so see myself with you, but not right now. And I would be an asshole if I kept dating you because I wouldn't be giving you what you really wanted. I'm going to let this go. I didn't understand the fucking value in that, and what a like good man you were being at that time, because like you said, many other men would have dogged me, right? Yeah. And I said, Evo, I had all these years to reflect on that, and because you did that, I then took that stance with every other man that I came across after you. So any guy that I dated after you, I was like, I would date them, and I would be like, okay, I like you, I don't like you, but I was always so truthful about my feelings, to the point where after I would like break it off with men, if I didn't really like see like it going anywhere, men would be like, yo, I so respect you because like you're keeping 100 with me right now. And I was like, I needed you to know that, Evo, because without you, I wouldn't be where I am right now as far as like how I conduct myself as a woman when it comes to, dating and, being with men. So I just needed you to know that. And it got quiet for a second.
I was a little blown away. I'm not going to lie. You know?
And I remember you were like, Gina, that is the most heartfelt, nicest thing that anyone has ever fucking told me, and I like so appreciate you saying that to me. And I remember me just being like,
I had no idea that I had impacted you in that way just by me just being me, you know, and just by trying to do the right thing, you know what I mean? I was more like I just felt like that's what needed to be done,
But so we wind up talking on the phone that day for like 3 hours. We fucking talked about everything.
We caught up a lot.
There was a lot to be said, and I was like, hey, so like next weekend, my friends and I are going to some club in the city. Would you like to come? And you were like, Gina, truthfully, I'm really not in the right space right now to be going out. And I was like, actually, I didn't ask you if like you wanted to take me out. I'm asking you if you want to come out with me. And you were like, you just were like, listen, I don't really have any money right now.
Yeah, like I felt like you fully didn't really understand what I was saying.
Yeah, you were 100%.
Yeah, and so I let you know what the deal was.
You were like, Gina, I don't really have any money right now. I'm just really not in a good place. And I was like,
to which I get blown away by your response again.
I'm like, okay, great, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to come out with me. I got you. Don't worry about it.
Told me, so don't worry about it. Just come out with me.
Yeah. And
at that point, what was I supposed to say? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you still could have said no.
No, I mean, I felt that as long as if I was really upfront with you, and you still wanted to hang out with me, then to me, that said that, like, we could chill. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like I didn't want us to hang out and then be embarrassed because there was something that I wasn't upfront with you about, you know, like you came to see something but like, oh damn, this nigga didn't tell me, like,
for sure.
I needed you to know the devil that you were dancing with, and once that was clear to you and you were like, yeah, still come out, you made me feel comfortable, and I was like, all right, like, and I'll be honest with you, you were the first person that I spoke to, that I wasn't hanging out with at that time, that really didn't care that I wasn't like in the right space at that time.
I just really valued who you were as a person, and because I knew you prior, I was willing to take that risk, because talking on that phone with you that day, you were still the Evo that I knew. So for me, it was like, I don't care if he doesn't have money.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything, because I'm just asking you to come out and have a good time. I'm not asking you to marry me right now.
Well, there was one thing that I didn't disclose, and so for all of you that are unaware of, that don't know me personally, at that time, I had, along with hanging out with the wrong people, I had also been dealing with the substance abuse problem. And so, in this still disclosing everything to you, I knew that once you saw me, you were gonna truly see what was going on.
Do you actually think that I was gonna know?
Yeah, because I knew that I didn't really look the same as I did from the last time you saw me, and I was aware of that. So, but
that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like there are many people that have a substance abuse problem, that people that see them don't immediately know what's going on with them in their life.
Trust me, prior to you, there was people that I ran into in places that hadn't seen me in a while and were like, yo, you okay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, it wasn't the first time that somebody had seen me and be like, yo, you all right? Like, you look like, you're not the same person. And so, but you made me feel different. And so I took the chance to see you. And let me tell you, when I jumped in the car.
Wait, hold on a second. Before you get to that point, I just want to say real quick.
I don't.
There was.
I know what you're about to say.
No. I'm not going to say that. Real quick. There was a person that commented that said, "What do you mean you pursued him?" And the commenter said that, and our TikTok said that women think that they pursue men by making themselves available. I'm going to tell you right now how I pursued Evo. Not only did I call him, I drove to his house.
Yeah.
Picked him up at his doorstep, and as he walked out of his house, I immediately knew, coming from a child that comes from two parents that were drug addicts, I immediately knew that he was addicted to drugs. Yeah. And when the minute you sat in that car, Evo, did I for one moment look at you differently?
No, not at all. Not at all. And not only that, but because you didn't look at me any differently, my first reaction to seeing you, because it wasn't one of a shock on your face, what ended up happening is all of a sudden I was flooded with all of these memories of who I was and who we were, and just things that I had just forgotten about. Like I was literally like a lost soul at that point, and I'd become so disconnected from who I used to be, that you were just such a breath of fresh air, and I knew that from the moment I sat in that car, I couldn't let you out of my sight after that. Like there was no way that I could continue going about how my life was going without you in it, because you made me feel so different, and
it was crazy though, because I knew immediately that you were I knew immediately that you were on drugs. And
this is the comment that we were saying, because people were like, they're saying,
people were like, what do you mean when you guys got together that he wasn't in a good space? I wish people could have saw, but
so wait, pause for a second. So fast, like slightly fast forward to now, when people meet us and they see that the great chemistry that we have. I mean, whatever, we have chemistry, sure. And we've worked on building a solid relationship, and a lot of people, not gonna lie, a lot of people, want that type of relationship.
Yeah, they want that Will and Jada love.
Yeah, and so what we have to say to that, and what we said on a TikTok was that, people don't realize when we first got together, I wasn't the person that most girls would even take a second look at.
Oh, for sure.
And what I literally said was, they probably walk by me and throw a cigarette out on me.
Yeah.
Because it was really like something, you were just, you saw beneath all of that. I mean, you knew more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it just puts light to sometimes what you feel like what you want is not necessarily what you need as a person.
Yeah.
and you knew what you needed in your life, and you knew that
I knew that you possessed it.
You knew that I possessed it, you know.
But it was just it was covered with dirt at the time.
Oh yeah, it was buried deep.
So, you know, we go out that night. We have a great fucking time.
Yo, let me tell you something. I gotta give her credit. That night, she even gave me money. She picked me up, and she was like, "I know you said you didn't have money." And, you know, like, and I never forget this. She said, "I know you said you didn't have money." She was like, "Here's $300. I want you to spend this tonight on yourself and on me like it's yours.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to think twice about it."
And I would ask you to go buy me drinks. I'm like, go get me a drink.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, man. You want to talk about picking somebody's spirit up and putting them up in the clouds when they were like, you know, feeling so low in life. That's exactly what that did. And
we had so much fun that night.
We had a lot of fun.
I remember, I think one of my favorite parts of the night was there was a part where you were dancing with my two friends, and I was just sitting there looking at you three like, look at these fucking... And little did I know that there was a relationship happening right there between you and one of my best friends. That like the two of you guys were like just in your glory at that moment, and you were stomping and you were whistling, you were doing all the things that Evo loves to do. And I was in such an awe of you because, again, I was seeing you for who you really were, and I was so enjoying that. We had a great time that night. You actually came home with me that night. My kids were with their father that weekend. We did not sleep in the same bed.
Nope.
I went in my kids' room. You stood. We woke up the next morning. I took you home. Bitch went to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I went back to your place out of pure convenience. Like, it wasn't convenient for you to take me all the way home.
Yeah, because you lived pretty far.
I lived far. You had to work in the morning. You know, we had been drinking and stuff like that, and it just made sense. You know, that we dealt with it in the morning.
Actually, I don't even know if I had to go to work, but I think I had to pick my kids up later that day.
You definitely had something going on in the morning, and you took me home at the next morning, and, you know, and to like kind of make it like a little bit of a Cinderella story, I still had the devils that I was dealing with back home. Yeah. You know, and not long after that, even though like we decided to start seeing each other again, I ended up getting locked up.
Yeah, I'll never forget actually how that story went down. We were supposed to go to the movies together, and your brother came to where I worked, like, not to tell me what happened, but because he was there for something else.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, actually, I'm supposed to go out with your brother tonight." And he was like, yeah, I actually don't think that's going to happen because Evo's in jail right now. And I was like, okay. And this was like maybe like a couple weeks into us dating, maybe like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It really wasn't even that long. Long story short, you wind up getting locked up, and then you wind up admitting yourself into rehab.
A halfway house, yeah.
Yeah, that was a rehab program. And you were there for 3 months.
No, was it? Yes, you're right. I was there for 3 months.
No, trust me, I know. You were there for 3 months.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I was there for 3 months.
So if people want to talk about how did you pursue him, not only did I like still want to be with you.
She waited for me.
You were there for 3 months. I remember the day you came home. I'll never forget. Because like you actually got out a little earlier than you were supposed to.
I got out because I was doing really well.
Yeah.
And I had showed a lot of progress. And I needed that. I needed that break. I needed that separation from my my everyday people, places, and things in order to get my mind in the right place. And as soon as I was disconnected from my environment, that coupled with the opportunity of being with you again and how you made me feel, I really made the all of the effort to change, you know, my mind, my body, and my soul. And it showed. It showed there, and like I really excelled past a lot of people that were there that were just kind of passing through. Yeah. You know, a lot of people that, you know, the staff that worked there, they saw it, and I eventually ended up getting out early.
And I didn't know that you surprised me. And while you were there, you sent cards to me. We talked on the phone when we could. I couldn't visit you though because
it was on Saturdays.
Yeah, and I worked every Saturday, and then there were Saturdays where like I had my kids. It was so difficult for me to go, but we talked as much as we could. You sent me cards, which I still have, and I'll never forget the day that you called me when you got home early. I was actually on my way out the door to get a rental car because my car was in the shop getting some body work because somebody had hit me or something like that. And I was like literally about to walk out the door, and as I'm walking in my hallway to go out the door, my phone rings and I pick it up and it's you, and you're like, "Hey, what's up?" You're like, "I got home early," and you were like, "You want to go grab some lunch?" And I was like, when I tell you I was in fucking shock, I was like, Yeah, like, of course. And I was like, I'm actually about to walk out the door, like, to go get a rental car, and like, it's perfect timing.
Yeah.
So like, I went and I picked up the rental car. I went and I picked you up again. We drove to go eat lunch. We went to the park that day. Like, we had a great fucking day.
Yeah,
I remember
did.
you did like fucking you were like, let's see what this truck can do. And I remember you did like little what do you call those things?
Donuts.
Yeah, you like kind of like in the park that we
Yeah.
were in. And the truck was trash. It was but we wind up having a great fucking time, and that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We have been together ever since.
Yeah.
Even though there was still at that point, Evo, we still dated. We were not officially boyfriend and girlfriend until later that year, where Evo was like, okay, I know for certain I 100% want to be with you. And you had a lot of progression.
Yeah.
You had went from living at home to living with roommates and to having a good job. And so all of 2005 was really like you getting back on track.
I had to get on my feet. Yeah.
And I supported you through that time. I wind up losing my job at that time. I wind up getting laid off for like a little stint. I don't know if you remember. It was because the collapse of the economy had happened right around that time.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I remember like me having some extra time, and I was like really being supportive to your, like I was taking you to and from work. I was picking you up at home. I was doing the most.
Yo, let me tell you something. You gave me a phone.
Oh my
because
God.
I didn't have a phone.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Got me a
that.
phone, right? It was like, he wasn't having it that I couldn't call her.
Yeah, I was like,
Let me tell you something, man. Like I just feel like that people really underestimate what it is to have, you know, a woman pursue someone. Yeah. You know, and how you like really supportive you were of that, and you would lend me your car all the time. I didn't have a car at the beginning. Yeah. And, you know, to like help me, allow me to go places and, you know, seek employment and stuff like that, and, you know, take care of my stuff. And yeah, I mean, like, you really, really like were a crutch at the beginning for me.
And this is why when people are like, I want what you and Evo have, I'm like, you ready to put in that work, girl?
Yeah. And I mean, but see, here's the laugh behind all of it was that, again, you knew, going back to us being in college, how driven I was. And if that drive could just ignite, you knew what would come from that. And it eventually did.
I took a really big chance, though, because a lot of people, again, me being a kid that was a product of parents that were drug addicts, I've seen drug addicts relapse over and over again.
It doesn't come back.
And I was taking, I guess you could say, even a bigger risk because I was a single mom at the time. Yeah. You also had not met my children either. I did not let you see them.
I had seen Anthony. You brought him to school one time.
Yeah, this is, right? And that's before.
That was before anything. You just brought him to school one time, and I was like, "Hey, it's your little man."
Oh, because they were having like a carnival or something at our school.
And I mean, I just seen him. We met one time, and I had no of your younger son. I didn't even know what he looked like. You know?
I also waited quite a while to introduce you to my kids.
Yes, you did.
Because that was just something that I wasn't comfortable doing. But. So yeah, like, we've been together since that point, and to say that we still from that point didn't have so many other things that we had to overcome as a couple, and that's a story those are stories for another time. But I thought it would be great to share this so that people could kind of understand like our full dynamic and why sometimes you and I see things very differently because of like how our dynamic right from the beginning was very different. Yeah. And I just want to say, I fully pursued my husband, okay? And he was a diamond in the rough. You know what I'm saying? Not that I was perfect, but he definitely, you know, he definitely is a diamond.
But once I got going, I mean,
you hit the fucking ground running.
I hit the ground running. I said, hold on, because here we go. Right. And we've been gone ever since.
There's actually like a TikTok like that when they're like, are you ready to go? Yeah. Okay, just hold my hand. Hold my hand.
Don't let go.
And the person just starts running. The other person is like holding on behind them like, fuck, what the fuck?
Telling I kicked in the turbo boost kicked in.
Evo was like, what's that thing in Fast and the Furious?
The nitrous.
Yeah, you were like, he's got no, they didn't call it.
Yeah, it's NOS.
NOS,
that's what that's nitrous.
They were like, oh shit, Evo got NOS. Yeah. Evo was like, I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
So yes, to all of you that, you know, that think that, you know, these type of things that they don't exist. They don't exist, or, you know, that they're easily attained, they take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think it's with anything that anybody does, you know, like anything that comes with success, it comes with a lot of trials and tribulations, you know, and the journey to that success. And you have to,
well,
you know,
without failure, there is no success.
Exactly. And so, you know, it's tough though. It's tough when you're good at something and you're good at it because you have full control of what you're good at, and you deal with your failures and stuff like that internally. It's a lot different than when you add another human being into that and you try to like create success with that. You know, you're dealing with two different personalities, two different chemistry of people, and to make that work, you know, is very challenging within itself, you know. So
well, we definitely made it work. Because here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And I mean, it's still...
Here we are, you know, 20 years later.
To some degree, you know, because we're evolving, it's still always a work in progress.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's why I said it's stories for another time. Because,
absolutely.
Yeah, we are here 20 years later, but it's always a work in progress. And anything that is worth anything is always something that you should be working on. Definitely. And I know this as an artist and being in, as long as we have been in this relationship. So that actually brings us to the end of the show.
Yep.
It was really nice to talk about it because it's something that like a lot of people have asked us about, like outside of social media, that we've never really like taken the time to get into. But now you know.
Inquiring minds wanted to know.
But I really enjoyed again having this conversation with you.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait until our next show where we talk about everything and anything. And until our next Shit Talk Fridays, peace out.
Peace out.